My husband hired a fake CPS worker to kidnap our daughter. When I first married my husband Kyle, we were happy, or at least I thought we were, until our child was born. Because around this time, I got a promotion, which meant I'd be getting paid more than Kyle. So we agreed it was best for him to be a stay-at-home father. But when I'd get home from my 10-hour shifts, I'd find the house looking 10 times messier than when I left in the morning. There were dirty diapers left all over the floor, and Kyle would either be asleep with a beer bottle in his hand or drinking while watching recorded NBA games from the 80s. And worst of all, he kept the habit that he promised he'd drop once our baby girl was born, going out with the boys every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. I tried my best to respect him, to keep our relationship alive, but after 4 years, nothing had changed and I was completely burnt out, so we divorced. Well, within 6 months, I noticed his Facebook status had already switched from single to married, not to mention his new wife and her kids being plastered across his socials, and I wouldn't have cared, but it broke our baby girl's heart. He canceled plans on her multiple times because he promised to spend time with them. So while I practically had to bend the ends of the earth to take time off work to go to my daughter's school plays, Kyle just wouldn't show up and instead post pictures of him at his kids' scouts and soccer practices. The bi-monthly visits were neglected too. I could see the disappointment in my daughter's eyes every time she sat at the window, waiting for him to show up, only to see the clock tick past another missed promise. And Lily didn't have many friends. I guess being an only child and living in a neighborhood full of retirees didn't help. So when Halloween came around and she had no one to trick-or-treat with, I finally caved. I called my ex-husband and asked if his stepkids could come over to play with her, since they were all around the same age. Yes, of course they can! How many nights? 1, 2. His tone was disturbingly upbeat. Just one night. Okay, perfect, I'll drop them off right now. When he dropped them off, it was the first time I had seen Kyle in months. But I didn't want to confuse Lily, so I didn't tell her he was driving. This was made even easier by the fact that he didn't come to the front door, just drove away the second they arrived. But I didn't care. It was the first time I saw Lily get along with kids her age so well. At the end of the night, they poured their candy onto the living room floor, sorting through piles of chocolate and lollipops. They traded their favorite brands and didn't even fight once. I expected Kyle to come the next day to collect them, but he never did. Didn't even bother to text or call. But turns out they all went to the same school as Lily, so I just incorporated them as part of my routine, because seeing how happy it made Lily meant it was worth it. Plus, I knew they liked us. Whenever I'd pick them up from school, they all, Lily and her step-siblings, would rush over to the car and wave school projects in my face. "Look what I made! Look what I made!" They'd shout at the top of their lungs. But after 3 nights of zero contact from Kyle, he finally picked them up. Again, he didn't come to the door, just parked in the front garden and texted me the words, "I'm outside." They hugged me super tight for almost 5 minutes straight before I could successfully maneuver them into the front garden. That night, Lily went to sleep with a smile on her face, and I knew I did good. But Kyle disagreed, because the next morning he called me. "What the F what you were thinking being so good to my kids? I know you're trying to steal them. If you think kindness is stealing, I think that says more about you than me," I responded before hanging up. I placed my hand on my chest and took a deep breath. I was relieved Kyle was out of my home, out of Lily's home, but my relief was short-lived, because 3 days later, I got a knock on the door. Except it wasn't Kyle. It was CPS. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint, claiming my daughter was living in unsafe conditions, that I was hoarding children. I looked the social worker up and down. 4-inch-long acrylics, a short skirt, lip filler, very young. I braced myself and tried to be patient with her. "Did you or did you not babysit 3 kids without a license for childcare?" Yes, but... "And did you or did you not let them stuff their faces with unsafe amounts of candy on Halloween?" I went silent. "That's what I thought. Ma'am, you're gonna have to give me the next point of contact for your child to be rehoused. Alternatively, I can throw her into a foster home." My heart raced. I immediately offered my sister, who I knew would take care of her. I watched as she took my daughter away, her tiny hands reaching for me, screaming my name. I knew exactly who had made that call, and once everything was said and done, I planned on making Kyle pay. I spent the next few hours in a complete daze. I couldn't believe what had just happened. One minute I was making breakfast for Lily, and the next she was being taken away from me. I called my sister right away, but she didn't pick up. I left about 15 voicemails before she finally called back. They just dropped her off. My sister Kathleen told me, "She's really upset, Rachel. What the hell is going on?" I explained everything as best I could through my tears. Kathleen promised to take good care of Lily while I sorted this mess out. I hung up and immediately called my company's legal assistance program. They connected me with a family lawyer named Thomas, who agreed to meet me that afternoon. I couldn't focus at work. My boss Brandon noticed and sent me home early. I spent the rest of the day gathering every document I could think of. Custody papers from the divorce, Lily's medical records, school reports, everything. I even printed out Kyle's text messages about dropping off his stepkids. Thomas reviewed everything and shook his head. "This CPS visit sounds highly irregular. Did you get the worker's name? Her badge number?" I realized I hadn't. In my panic, I'd just let this woman walk in and take my daughter. Thomas made some calls while I sat there feeling like the worst mother in the world. "Good news," he finally said. "I spoke with the CPS office. They have a record of the complaint, but the worker who visited you doesn't match any of their staff descriptions. I think we need to file a police report." My stomach dropped. Who was this woman if not from CPS? I called Kathleen again in a panic. "Lily's fine," she assured me. "She's watching cartoons with my boys. The woman had ID, Rachel. She looked official." I spent that night tossing and turning, checking my phone every few minutes minutes. The next morning, I drove to the actual CPS office. The receptionist confirmed what Thomas had said. They had no record of sending anyone to my house yesterday. They had received a complaint, but it was still being processed. I filed a police report with an officer named Ellis, who seemed concerned but not alarmed. Unfortunately, this happens sometimes during custody disputes. One parent tries to scare the other with fake officials. Your daughter is safe with your sister, right? We'll investigate, but in the meantime, let's work on getting a temporary emergency custody order. I was back at Thomas's office by noon. He filed the paperwork immediately, and by late afternoon, we had a court date set for the following morning. The judge, understanding the urgency of the situation, granted the temporary order first thing. By noon the next day, I had a court order stating Lily should be returned to me pending investigation. I drove straight to Kathleen's house, clutching that paper like it was gold. When I got there, Kathleen was standing in the driveway looking frantic. "She's gone, Rachel." Kyle came by with a court order saying he had emergency custody. He took her about an hour ago. I showed her my court order, hands shaking. This is the real one. Kyle's was fake, just like the CPS worker. We called the police immediately. Officer Ellis came back with another officer. They took statements and put out an alert for Kyle's car. I called Thomas again, who contacted the judge directly about the fraudulent use of court documents. 3 hours later, my phone rang. It was Kyle. "You called the cops on me for taking my daughter? Where is she?" I demanded. "Safe with me and her real family, not with someone who lets strange kids into the house and feeds them garbage." I put the phone on speaker so the officers could hear. "Kyle, what you did is illegal. The court order you showed Kathleen was fake." He laughed. "Prove it. My wife works in the court system. Nobody's going to believe you over her." That's when it clicked. The fake CPS worker, the court documents. Kyle's new wife must work at the courthouse or know someone who does. I remembered meeting her briefly at a school event. Vanessa, that was her name. She'd barely acknowledged me. "Put Lily on the phone," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's sleeping," Kyle snapped. "I'll have her call you tomorrow." "Maybe." He hung up. The officers looked at me sympathetically. "We'll find them," one promised. "We have his address on file." But when they went to Kyle's house, nobody was there. His neighbors said they'd seen the family loading up their car earlier that day, like they were going on a trip. I collapsed onto my couch that night, completely broken. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Lily, sleeping in what looked like a hotel room. The message read, "She's fine. Stop making trouble or you'll never see her again." I forwarded it to the police and Thomas immediately. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called Kyle's ex-best friend, Logan. We'd never gotten along, but I knew he and Kyle had a falling out right before our divorce. Logan answered on the third ring. "Rachel, what's going on?" "Kyle took Lily. I need to know where he might go." There was a long pause. "His parents have a cabin near Lake Tahoe. He always said if things got bad, that's where he'd go to reset. I can text you the address." I thanked him and immediately called Officer Ellis with the information. They said they'd contact the local authorities there, but it might take time. I couldn't wait. I packed a bag, called my boss to take emergency leave, and was on the road within an hour. I didn't know what I'd do when I got there, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't letting Kyle take my daughter from me. Not now, not ever. The drive to Lake Tahoe was the longest 5 hours of my life. I stopped only once for gas and coffee, my hands shaking as I filled the tank. I kept checking my phone, hoping for updates from the police or Thomas, but there was nothing, just silence. I reached the area around midnight. The cabin was tucked away on a private road, surrounded by tall pines. I parked my car about half a mile away and walked the rest, using my phone as a flashlight. I didn't want Kyle to know I was coming. As I got closer, I saw a light on inside. Kyle's car was parked out front, along with another one I didn't recognize, probably Vanessa's. I crept up to a window and peered inside. The living room was empty, but I could hear voices from somewhere deeper in the house. I circled around to the back and found another window. This one looked into a small bedroom where Lily was sleeping. My heart nearly burst seeing her there, safe and sound. I tapped gently on the glass, but she didn't stir. I was trying to figure out what to do next when my phone vibrated. It was a text from Officer Ellis. "Local police en route. ETA 20 minutes. Do not approach suspects." 20 minutes felt like forever. I stayed hidden behind some bushes, watching the cabin. Then I heard Kyle and Vanessa arguing inside, their voices getting louder. The back door suddenly flew open, and Kyle stormed out with a beer in his hand. He was heading right toward me. I ducked down lower, barely breathing. He passed within feet of me, muttering to himself about ungrateful women and kicking at the dirt. Then he stopped, turned around, and looked directly at the bushes where I was hiding. "Who's there?" he called out. I froze. Kyle took a step closer, squinting into the darkness. Then, thank God, his phone rang. He answered it, turned around, and walked back toward the cabin, still talking. I caught bits of the conversation, something about the judge and paperwork ready. The police arrived 5 minutes later, their cars coming up the road with no sirens but lights flashing. I ran out to meet them, explaining the situation. They approached the cabin with me staying behind. I watched as they knocked on the door. Vanessa answered, looking shocked. There was a lot of talking, then yelling from Kyle. One of the officers came back to me. "Ma'am, we need to see your emergency custody order." I showed him the paperwork. He nodded and went back to the cabin. More discussion followed. Finally, another officer emerged with Lily, still half asleep in her pajamas. When she saw me, she broke free from the officer's gentle grip and ran straight into my arms. "Mommy!" she cried, burying her face in my neck. I held her tight, tears streaming down my face. Over her shoulder, I could see Kyle in the doorway, his face twisted with rage. Vanessa was behind him, whispering something in his ear. The officers explained that they would escort us back to town, where we would need to make formal statements. Kyle and Vanessa Vanessa would also need to come in for questioning about the fraudulent court documents. We drove back in a police car, Lily falling asleep against me in the back seat. I kept stroking her hair, afraid that if I stopped touching her, she might disappear again. The next few days were a blur of police stations, lawyers' offices, and courthouse visits. Thomas filed for an emergency restraining order against both Kyle and Vanessa. The judge granted it immediately when he saw the evidence of the fake court documents and impersonation of a CPS worker. I took a week off work to stay home with Lily. She was clingy and had nightmares the first few nights. During the day, she would barely let me out of her sight, even following me to the bathroom. I didn't mind. I was just grateful to have her back. On the third day, my doorbell rang. I checked through the peephole and saw a woman I didn't recognize. I opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain on. "Hi, are you Rachel?" she asked. "I'm Cynthia. I work with Vanessa at the courthouse." I tensed up immediately. "What do you want?" I point. "I think you should know something. Vanessa's been talking about you for months. She's obsessed with the idea that you're trying to take her family away. She even had a photo of you on her desk with X's drawn over your eyes." My blood ran cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because what they did was wrong, and..." She hesitated. "I think they're planning something else." I overheard Vanessa on the phone yesterday saying, "Plan B is already in motion." I thanked Cynthia for the warning and immediately called Thomas and Officer Ellis. They both told me to document everything and stay vigilant. Ellis said he'd increase patrols in my neighborhood. That night, I double-checked all the locks and set up a chair under the doorknob of Lily's room, where we were both sleeping. I barely closed my eyes, jumping at every creak and rustle outside. The next morning, I got a call from Lily's school. The secretary sounded concerned. "Mrs. Bennett, we've had a woman here claiming to be Lily's stepmother. She tried to get information about Lily's schedule and when she could pick her up. We didn't give her anything, of course, but I thought you should know." I thanked her and immediately called the police again. They took another report but said there wasn't much they could do since Vanessa hadn't actually broken any laws by asking questions. Later that day, I got a text from an unknown number. "You can't protect her forever. We're her real family." I blocked the number and forwarded the message to Thomas and Ellis. Thomas suggested I document everything in a journal with dates and times. "Build a paper trail," he advised. "We'll need it." A week passed without incident. I started to relax a little, thinking maybe Kyle and Vanessa had given up. Lily went back to school, and I returned to work, though I arranged to leave early each day to pick her up myself. Then one afternoon, I got a call from the school again. This time it was Lily's teacher, sounding panicked. "Mrs. Bennett, there's been an incident. Lily got into a fight with one of the other children. She's in the principal's office." I rushed to the school, finding Lily sitting outside the principal's office with a tear-stained face. When she saw me, she ran into my arms. "Mommy, I didn't mean to push her. She said you were a bad mom and that I was going to live with Daddy soon." My heart sank. "Who said that, sweetie?" "Emma." She said her mom told her. Emma, one of Kyle's stepdaughters, the same little girl who had trick-or-treated at our house and sorted candy with Lily on Halloween. The principal, Mr. Raymond, called us into his office. He explained that Emma had been taunting Lily all day, saying things no child would come up with on their own. When I told him about the situation with Kyle and Vanessa, his expression darkened. "This is completely inappropriate. I'll be speaking with Emma's parents immediately." "No," I said quickly. "Please, let me handle this through my lawyer. I don't want to make things worse." He agreed reluctantly. As we were leaving, I saw Emma in the hallway with the school counselor. She looked confused and upset, not malicious. Just a kid caught in adult drama. That evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered it. "Hello, Rachel." It was Vanessa. "I hear there was some trouble at school today. How did you get this number?" I demanded. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're turning my daughter against me by making her fight with Lily." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your daughter was repeating things you told her. Things no child should be involved in. My children know the truth. That you're an unfit mother who uses her job as an excuse to neglect her child. That you tried to steal my children to replace the one you can't properly care for." I was shaking with anger. "Stay away from my daughter, and keep your children out of your sick games." She laughed. "Oh, Rachel, this isn't a game. This is war, and I always win." I hung up and immediately called Thomas. He advised me to file another police report and to request a meeting with the school to ensure Lily and Emma were kept separated. The next day, I took Lily to school and spoke with Mr. Raymond and the counselor. They were understanding and promised to keep an eye on the situation. As I was leaving, I saw Vanessa dropping off her kids. Our eyes met across the parking lot. She smiled and waved as if we were old friends. It made my skin crawl. That afternoon, I picked Lily up and took her to my sister's house. Kathleen had offered to watch her while I met with Thomas to discuss our next steps. As I was leaving, Lily grabbed my hand. "Mommy, are you coming back?" The question broke my heart. "Of course I am, sweetie. I'll always come back for you." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Kyle and Vanessa had planted seeds of insecurity that were starting to grow. My meeting with Thomas was productive but frustrating. We had evidence of harassment and the fraudulent documents, but the wheels of justice turned slowly. The restraining order was in place, but enforcing it was another matter. As I was driving home from Thomas's office, I noticed a car following me. It stayed 2 vehicles behind, making all the same turns I did. When I deliberately took a wrong turn, it followed. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but I had a pretty good idea who it was. I called Officer Ellis while driving. "I think Vanessa is following me. Where are you now?" he asked. I told him my location, and he said he'd send a patrol car. I made another random turn, and sure enough, the car followed. Then it suddenly accelerated, pulling up alongside me at a red light. It wasn't Vanessa behind the wheel. It was Kyle. He rolled down his window and and yelled something I couldn't hear. Then he swerved toward my car, forcing me to jerk the wheel and hit the curb. My car bounced hard, and I heard a tire pop. Kyle sped away, laughing. I pulled over, hands shaking too badly to drive any further. A patrol car arrived a few minutes later. I gave them Kyle's license plate and a description of what happened. They took a report and called a tow truck for my car. While waiting for the tow, I called Kathleen to check on Lily. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. Panic rising, I called her husband, George. "Hey, Rachel," he answered casually. "What's up? Is everything okay there? Is Lily okay?" "Yeah, everything's fine. Kathleen took the kids for ice cream about 20 minutes ago." "Why?" I exhaled in relief. "No reason. Just checking in. Tell her to call me when she gets back, okay?" After getting my car towed to a repair shop and taking an Uber home, I finally heard back from Kathleen. Lily was fine, having a great time with her cousins. I didn't tell her about the incident with Kyle. No need to worry her. That night, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was, "Thought you should see this." Inside was a link to a private Facebook group called Mothers Against Rachel Bennett. I clicked on it, my stomach churning. The group had about 20 members, mostly women I didn't know. The posts were all about me, how I was an unfit mother, how I worked too much, how I had tried to steal Kyle's stepchildren. There were photos of me taken without my knowledge, getting into my car, walking into work, picking Lily up from school. Vanessa was the group admin, posting the most vicious comments. I took screenshots of everything, then reported the group to Facebook. I sent the screenshots to Thomas and Officer Ellis, adding them to the growing file of harassment evidence. The next morning, I woke up to find my front yard covered in trash. Someone had dumped garbage all over my lawn during the night. Mixed in with the trash were photos of Lily and me, torn to pieces. I called the police again, and they sent someone out to take pictures and file yet another report. As I was cleaning up the mess, my elderly neighbor, Mrs. De Peterson, came over. "I saw who did this," she said quietly. "A woman with blonde hair. She came around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep and was looking out my window. I took a video with my phone. She showed me the footage, grainy in the darkness, but clearly showing Vanessa dumping bags of trash on my lawn, then carefully placing torn photos among the garbage. I could have kissed Mrs. Peterson right there. I asked her to send me the video and if she'd be willing to show it to the police. She agreed immediately. With this new evidence, Officer Ellis was finally able to arrest Vanessa for violating the restraining order. She spent one night in jail before being released on bail. The conditions of her release included staying at least 500 feet away from me and Lily at all times. I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I got a call from the HR department at my company. They wanted to see me immediately. When I arrived, they showed me emails that had been sent to the entire executive team, claiming I was embezzling company funds and using company time to harass my ex-husband. The emails included doctored screenshots of fake bank transfers and manufactured text conversations. I was placed on administrative leave while they investigated. My boss, Brandon, pulled me aside afterward. "I know this is bogus, Rachel, but we have to follow protocol. Take the time to deal with your personal situation. Your job will be waiting when you get back." I appreciated his support, but I was furious. Kyle and Vanessa were now attacking my livelihood. I drove straight to Thomas's office with the new evidence. "This is escalating," he said grimly. "They're trying to isolate you, take away your daughter, your reputation, your job. We need to go on the offensive." He suggested filing for a permanent restraining order against both Kyle and Vanessa, with specific provisions about contact through third parties or social media. He also recommended I file a civil suit for defamation and harassment. I agreed to both. As I was leaving his office, my phone rang. It was Lily's school again. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been another incident. Lily's missing from her classroom." My heart stopped. I literally couldn't breathe for a second. "What do you mean she's missing?" I managed to choke out. "Her class came back from recess and she wasn't with them. We've searched the entire school. No one can find her." I was already running to my car. "I'm on my way. Call the police. Now." I broke every speed limit getting to the school. The parking lot was already filled with police cars when I arrived. I sprinted through the front doors and found Mr. Raymond talking to Officer Ellis in the hallway. "What happened?" I demanded. Mr. Raymond looked devastated. "We have security footage. A woman signed in as Lily's Aunt Kathleen. She had ID and everything. The front desk called Lily down, and she left with the woman." "Show me the footage," I said. We huddled around a monitor in the security office. The timestamp showed it happened just 30 minutes ago. The woman on screen had Kathleen's build and hair color, but she kept her face angled away from the cameras. Lily seemed hesitant at first, but eventually took her hand and walked out. "That's not my sister," I said. "That's Vanessa with a wig." Officer Ellis immediately got on his radio. "We need an APB on Vanessa Mitchell. Suspected child abduction." He turned to me. "We'll find her, Rachel. I promise." I called Kathleen, who confirmed she was at work and nowhere near the school. Then I called Thomas, who said he'd meet me at the police station. As I was about to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from Kyle's number. "She's safe with her real family now. Stop fighting us and maybe you can see her on weekends." I showed Ellis the text, my hands trembling. "This is evidence they're working together despite the restraining order," he said, his expression hardening. "We've got probable cause now. We're bringing them both in." Police units were dispatched to Kyle and Vanessa's house, but they weren't there. Their neighbors said they'd packed up the car again that morning, kids and all. I sat in the police station, feeling completely helpless. Thomas arrived and put his arm around me. "We'll find her, Rachel. They can't hide forever." My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. "Mommy?" Lily's voice was small and scared. "Lily, baby, where are you? Are you okay?" "I don't know where I am. It's a hotel. Daddy says we're going on a long trip." I put the phone on speaker so Ellis could hear. here. Can you see anything outside the window? Any signs or buildings? There's a big blue sign with a crown on it, and I can see planes taking off. Ellis was already typing on his computer. Airport Hotel, Royal Crown Inn. It's about 20 minutes from here. Then I heard Kyle's voice in the background. Who are you talking to? Give me that phone. The call ended abruptly. Ellis was already mobilizing officers. We've got them. Stay here. No way, I said. I'm coming with you. He didn't argue. We drove to the hotel with lights flashing but no sirens. 2 other police cars met us there. The manager confirmed that a family matching Kyle's description had checked in 2 hours ago. Room 237. The officers approached the room carefully. I stayed back in the hallway as instructed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Ellis knocked on the door. Police! Open up! Silence. Then shuffling sounds. The door cracked open, and Vanessa peered out, her face a mask of innocence. Is there a problem, officers? Step aside, ma'am. We have reason to believe there's a child in danger. Vanessa's fake smile disappeared. You can't come in without a warrant. We have probable cause, Ellis said, pushing the door open. Where's the child? I couldn't wait anymore. I rushed past the officers into the room. Kyle was standing by the bathroom door looking panicked. His stepkids were sitting on one of the beds looking confused and scared. Where is she? I demanded. Where's Lily? Kyle pointed to the bathroom. She's fine. We were just going on a family vacation. I ran to the bathroom door. It was locked. Lily? Baby, it's mommy. Open the door. I heard the lock click, and then my daughter was in my arms, sobbing. I held her tight, checking her over for any injuries. She seemed physically fine, just terrified. They said you didn't want me anymore. She hiccuped against my shoulder. They said you gave me away. Never, I whispered fiercely. I will never, ever give you up. I love you more than anything in the world. Behind us, the officers were handcuffing both Kyle and Vanessa. Kyle was yelling about his rights, while Vanessa had gone completely silent, her face like stone. Ellis came over to us. We're taking them in for custodial interference and violating the restraining order. The stepchildren will go with child services until their biological father can be contacted. I felt a pang of sympathy for those kids. None of this was their fault. Can they stay with me until then? They know me, and they're Lily's friends. Ellis looked surprised, but nodded. I'll see what I can arrange. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Kyle and Vanessa both took plea deals rather than face trial. Kyle got 6 months for custodial interference, plus 5 years probation. Vanessa got a year for the fake court documents and impersonating a government official. The judge granted me full custody of Lily with no visitation rights for Kyle. He could petition the court after completing parenting classes and anger management, but even then, any visits would be supervised. My civil suit was settled out of court. I didn't get much money, but I didn't care about that. What mattered was the legally binding agreement that neither Kyle nor Vanessa could contact me or Lily through any means. Not directly, not through social media, not through third parties. Slowly, life started to return to normal. I went back to work. Lily went back to school. The nightmares became less frequent for both of us. Jason brought his kids over for dinner once a week, and we all became something of an extended family. 3 months after everything happened, I got a letter from Kyle. It had been screened by his probation officer, who included a note saying Kyle had been making progress in his programs. The letter itself was short. I'm sorry for what I did. I was wrong. I hope someday Lily can forgive me, even if you can't. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'd show it to Lily and let her decide if she wanted contact with her father, but not now. Now was for healing. 6 months later, I was promoted at work. The extra money meant we could finally move out of our small apartment into a house with a yard, in the same school district so Lily wouldn't have to change schools. It had 3 bedrooms, which seemed excessive for just the 2 of us, but I converted one into a playroom where Lily and her friends could hang out. Jason's kids were our first overnight guests. They helped Lily decorate her new room, painting one wall with handprints in rainbow colors. That night, I heard them giggling long after bedtime, but I didn't have the heart to tell them to go to sleep. A year to the day after Kyle and Vanessa took Lily, we had a freedom party, as Lily called it. Just us, Kathleen and her family, and Jason with his kids. We grilled in the backyard, played silly games, and ate way too much cake. As the party wound down, Lily climbed into my lap on the porch swing. Are you happy, Mommy? She asked. I looked around at our mismatched, cobbled-together family. At my sister arguing playfully with Jason about football. At the kids chasing fireflies in the yard. At our home, safe and filled with laughter. Yes, baby, I said, hugging her close. I'm very happy. Me too, she said, snuggling against me. I like our family just the way it is. I kissed the top of her head. Me too, Lily. Me too.